What is up, Hoodats? Welcome inside Black and Gold. Steve Geller, Jeff Nowak, a 1-7 edition of the Inside Black and Gold podcast. One of three teams with the worst record in the NFL, Jeff. What's nice to see on the Tankathon standings, though, right now is at least if the season ended today, the Saints would have the top pick in the draft.
1-7. Is that bad? Is that not what you what you want?
Maybe if you were playing in the NBA, it's not terrible.
Yeah, I mean that's like 2 weeks, right? Like in this case, it's 2 months. But yeah, and there's a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, not much of it is good. But we're gonna get through it. Bucs 23, Saints 3. Unfortunately, it was very similar to how a lot of the other games, the Bucs games, have gone in the Superdome. In that, I don't think the Bucs offense did a whole lot. But they also never had to, because the Saints offense made sure that they didn't. And yeah, I'm just, it's not even, I feel like a disappointed dad at this stage. It's like, yeah. I'm not even mad anymore. I'm just disappointed. Like, it's just like, I thought you guys knew how to play football better than that. It's like, it's my fault for believing that there was better football in there. And instead, we got what we got.
Even for head coach Kellen Moore, man, I was expecting a lot better things this year with an offensive mind that he was praised so much for being this offensive genius, and it just has not translated at all.
Yeah, no, it hasn't, and it seems to be getting worse. And so I'm curious as to how things go. And so Tyler Shough season is here. We're going to talk a lot about Tyler Shough, Spencer Rattler. We're going to hear from both of them. We're going to hear the head coach in the first segment here. We're going to do studs and duds as we do in the second and third segment. And it's basically going to be studs, a lot of offense talk, duds, or the other way around. Duds, a lot of offense talk, studs, a lot of defense talk, because, I think that's been the story of this season for the Saints. It's like in the games that the offense has shown up and had a pulse, the defense just hasn't been there. In the games where the defense played really well, the offense hasn't been there. And in the one game you won, the defense carries you to a win. Right? And so, yeah, I mean, it's funny because we talk about this season, and, there's a reason I predicted 4-13. I think they probably still get to 4 wins, right? Like, there's a lot of season left and a lot of bad teams left on the schedule. But there's, and I say this a lot, like there's a lot of different ways to get to whatever record you have, right? Like there's a lot of different ways to get to 1-7. There's a lot of different ways to get to 4-13. And the way you saw them drop to 1-7 is a problem, right? The way they fell to 1-5, I felt where they were competitive against the Patriots. They were competitive against the 49ers, against the Cardinals, against the Bills. It's like you're not finishing off games, but you can see they're building to something. They were building a bridge to the edge of a cliff.
No, the last Sunday. 2 games definitely smashed all of that.
Yeah, everything that you were doing well, you completely destroyed. The turnover is like, what's the value of protecting the ball? Well, we saw it. 8 turnovers in 2 games. Spencer Rattler had 6 turnovers in 6 quarters after going 6 games with 1 interception, and it was like a 4th down heave. That's just, man, that's just brutal.
Sunday in the Dome, I felt like we saw 2 completely amazing interceptions from the defense of the Buccaneers.
I don't want to talk about that, but we're gonna have to. So anyway, that's what it is. There's no, we can grouse all we want. This is the cold open. We're gonna get into a lot more in the next segment. It's just a disappointing way to see this team. Like, you're not getting better, but if you're getting worse on offense. And as much as I want to be happy about how the defense played, I can't be, because it's really hard to grade a defense when the other team's offense doesn't really have to press anything. They were like, we'll kick field goals. We'll win kicking field goals because y'all aren't putting up points. But yeah, just kind of put your sentiments into a few words, and then we'll hit a break.
Yeah, just all around, like you mentioned, disappointing. The being angry part, I feel like we're over. It's just a lot of bad football we're seeing, and it's hard to watch. Then we have to talk about it, and I got to say that the whole mood from the fans post game too was real down. Whether it was the callers or the ones coming to the post game show at the Swamp Room, that this Saints team, a lot of folks had the expectation and realization they were rebuilding, they were retooling, whatever you want to say, in the developmental phase for this team. And you brought it up. It's the fact that we've seen, okay, there were some positive moments in some of these early losses, but now, like these last two games, Chicago and Tampa Bay, I don't know what Saints team is on the field right now.
I agree completely. And I'll tell you what, Kellen Moore better be careful because, as long as Dennis Allen was around, Brian Kelly couldn't be the most hated coach in Louisiana. Now Brian Kelly's gone. And so Kellen Moore's shield of we hate that. We can get mad at coaches, but he's still going to be second on the list behind that guy. Well, that guy's gone.
Wait, you still have Willie Green people hate.
Yeah, we're talking football, man. Basketball is a whole different animal. And I'm telling you, there's only so much bandwidth to hate a coach, and Brian Kelly was taking up a lot of it.
Yeah.
And now it's how do you complain about the rest of the coaching staff? It's all going to go to Kellen. It's he's got to be ready.
Poor Kellen.
I'm only halfway joking. I honestly think that's a legitimate thing. You can only hate so much at one given time, and you take Brian Kelly out of that equation, you can't really complain about it the second half of an LSU season that is gone because you fire the coach. But you got a half of a Saints season left where it's let's get on this.
The angry mob will focus their attention to someone else. So yes, Kellen has to worry about the torches coming to his house.
Again, I'm only halfway kidding. I genuinely think that's a true thing that happens. But all right, let's hit a quick break. This is Inside Black and Gold. I am Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. Please hit the subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, ring the bell. On Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating, leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. If they allow you to rate, if they allow you to review, do that as well. You can also hit me up at Jeff_Nowak on X or at Steve Geller WWL. You can also follow the show over at Saints_pod. And as we go through this episode, if you want to follow along, there is a stock up, stock down column over at WWL.com. Go through basically all the same stuff, but with a lot more complaining in this forum than I necessarily am able to put into words on that one. So, yeah, you got it. Anyway, who dat? Go Saints. We'll be right back. And we are back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here coming at you alongside Steve Geller after week 8, otherwise known as the 7th loss of the Saints 2025 season in 8 attempts. Saints fell to the Buccaneers 23-3. It was a much closer game than that sounds. It was 7-3 at halftime, in large part because the Saints defense did everything it could. The Saints defense didn't allow a point in the first half.
Man,
it was well, we'll talk about that when we get to the quarterbacks here in a second. But the Saints made the decision to change quarterbacks in this game, and I think that's what we have to talk about for the majority here in this kind of open-ended segment. Is in the third quarter of this game, Kellen Moore decided, hey, it's time. And I say in the third quarter, he decided, because when I asked him, hey, was there any conversation at halftime? I asked Tyler Shough, hey, was there any conversation at halftime? He said, nope. That was very much in the third quarter. They were like, you know what? Let's do it.
He'd seen enough.
I'm not a huge fan of that because, if anything, I'd like to know they had a plan. They didn't have a plan. They're just flying by the seat of their pants on this thing, man. And you could tell, it's just not pretty. And I have some serious questions. You're handling a young quarterback in a way that doesn't seem like very, very thoughtfully. And that's true of both. And so, like, because if they had come out at halftime and done it, I've been like, well, okay. They saw in the first half, they were like, hey, we're in the break. Like, is this the right thing to do? They had conversations. That's not what happened. There was not a word spoken about changing quarterbacks until the first drive for the Saints in the third quarter. And they were like, you know what? I don't like that. But what was your reaction when you saw they were making that change? Like, how did you kind of perceive that?
You know, we've heard Kellen Moore talk about the fact he's not one that wants to go back and forth on this QB thing. So it was a little surprising. I guess that's not even the word, though, because of the way Spencer was playing. Was happy to see Shough finally get that shot and figure that the tide's turning now just because you've made that switch. I don't really know if you can go back to Spencer Rattler at this point.
No, and yeah, I guess I do want to talk about that more because I look at it and say, like, the toothpaste is out of the tube. Whatever metaphor you want to use.
Sure, yeah.
I just don't think, like, you open that box, I don't know if you can close it again. Because if you did, then it would make it be like, well, it would make it appear like you saw Tyler play and you were so disappointed. Like, that's how it would go. And they don't really seem to care about the optics of that, to be fair, but it would just not come off well. But this is what Kellen said when he was asked, okay, what went into that decision? Like, why did you make that decision? And all that.
Yeah, we just need to find a way to create something on offense. It has more to do with the offense collectively. We're just not executing and playing at a high enough standard, and we got to find a way to move the football consistently, protect the football, and score points. And so, this is a pure full offensive evaluation point. We're not there. I think we just got to evaluate this whole thing in the next 48 hours on offense. Find the solutions that give us the best chance to win. Thought Tyler went in there and he looked the part. He made some plays. The one interception was unfortunate. Gave us a chance to convert there, and so we'll obviously make that evaluation here quickly and make some decisions moving forward. But this had more to do with the whole offense just not playing well enough and hopefully trying to generate some form of a spark there. Unfortunately, it wasn't able to be done.
What was the decision to make the change when you did? Because obviously he came out at halftime and Spencer had that first drive. So was it something that happened on that possession?
Yeah, I just felt like we were close. We just weren't making enough. We weren't getting it going. There was not enough on offense, and so I just felt like I was trying to create a spark, trying to create something that felt a little different. See if it would provide us with the urgency to execute at a higher level and play cleaner football. And there's some little moments in there, some good plays, but not enough collectively.
Did you feel that the change?
Yeah, and he didn't really address why they didn't make the decision at halftime and why they waited one drive into the third quarter. I don't think that helped anybody, and it bothers me that they got to halftime and you saw what was happening, and I think the decision was kind of made after that pick six, and it was like, man, this can't happen. Like, you fumbled on the opening possession because, like, that's the issue for Spencer is you kind of made your brand. I protect the football. I make good decisions. I don't make stupid mistakes, like not identifying that, that guy's really tall and has long arms and he can get up there and make that play. Like, maybe pump once. I don't know. Like, you can't make that type of mistake down in the red zone. And yes, the defender made a good play, but you allowed him to make a good play, right? The fumble, completely on Spencer for the second week in a row. You got to protect the football. Like, I'm all for scrambling, but if you're going to be a quarterback who scrambles, you have to protect the football. You're not a running back. Players are like the defense is going to come up, and it was Anthony Nelson again. It was the same guy both times who made those plays, which good for him. He made plays, but like, your whole brand over the first 6 weeks of the season, and the reason it was so easy to stick behind you as a quarterback was you protected the ball. And in this case, you just flat out did not do that, and it was the second week in a row. And so I don't fault the Saints for making that decision. I don't think they wanted to make the change to this point. I think they wanted to ride it out longer, and they just said, you know what, we can't do it anymore. It's time. But they haven't been ramping up Tyler Shough in practice. He hasn't got a single practice rep with the one since the preseason.
That's why you think that pick six did it? That was the ceiling, like, decision?
I mean, it obviously wasn't in the moment, but
right.
I do think that just he never recovered from it. Like, he did feel like he had kind of lost his juice in that game. Like, did you see that kind of swagger from him that we had seen previously. He looked like the guy we watched all last year, where it was like hopeless. It felt hopeless. And I understand why they made the quarterback shift. I just think the forethought that's gone into this from the start has not been what I hoped it would be, which was just being thoughtful about, okay, at halftime, you go up to Scott Tolzien and say, hey, can you just talk to Tyler? To let him know we might go to him in this third quarter so he's mentally ready. That didn't happen. Like, that's all you have to do is tap Scott Tolzien on the shoulder and say, hey, to go talk to Tyler, let him know we might go to him. It could be nuts. It could be literally any assistant coach. The fact that that did not happen means that they were not planning for it whatsoever, and that's just not a good look. It just doesn't strike me as a team that has it all together. And we'll see how it goes. Like, I don't know if that's a huge issue, but it just, like, I'm not a fan of it, and we'll see how it goes. And I think the reason Tyler got in there and didn't look like he had much to offer is because he wasn't. I mean, he'll say he was prepared. He'll say he was 100% to go, ready to go. I don't know how you could possibly be fully prepared without a single rep in practice. I just don't think that's true. I asked Kellen, hey, was the offense limited at all with Tyler? He said no, and I don't buy that. I just don't think that's true. And so we'll see. Again, like, yeah, I mean, what do you think? Kellen hasn't, he said they're going to make that decision. He wasn't ready to declare, hey, Tyler's a starting quarterback, whatever. I don't know. Like, it would be stunning to me if they did not at least ride it out for the next couple games and see what he has to offer, because it would just look so haphazard, so weak to not do it.
It's unfortunate that it's coming now and you're playing one of the tougher matchups in your back of slate schedule here.
Yeah.
Because the Rams have always been a problem for this Saints team. You're going to be on the road and a hostile environment, whatever you want to call it there. It's SoFi, but I'm just more worried about the Rams defense, which I know is been pretty darn good at applying pressure. I haven't seen their turnover numbers, but I can imagine that that's going to be a difficult matchup from what I know of LA. And, if you're going to Shough right now, which, like I said, you kind of pulled the Band-Aid, squeezed the toothpaste out, whatever you want to say. I don't think you can put it back in either. You've put this in motion now. And so, yeah, to me, Shough's the starter for week 9.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't see how you can reverse course, because it would come off like you watched the tape and you were so dissatisfied with how the rookie played that usually we can't start him. And that's why, like, I don't think you wanted to put him in this game. I really don't. I think your goal was to ride this out as long as you could.
Right.
Even if you planned on putting him in eventually, you weren't thinking like, well, we're going to put him in week 8. So his first start can be week 9 on the road in LA against a playoff team. Like, that can't possibly have been the ideal scenario. And we talked in pregame, like, I don't think they have a date scheduled, and like, I don't think I have a date circled. Like, this is where we want him in. But at the same time, like, there are ideal on-ramps to being an NFL player, and this wasn't it.
No, right.
That said, like, you're kind of there. And, you do have to give Spencer credit for how he handled it. That's not an easy situation. And whatever you feel about Spencer Rattler, about whether he's a starting quarterback in the NFL, whatever, that is a type of scenario that can go a lot of different ways. The camera's on you. Like, you got to handle your body language the right way. You've got to keep the right look on your face. If you stand there scowling the entire second half, that's going to get parsed out. It's going to get displayed as being a bad teammate. He didn't do that. I was watching him on the sideline. This is what Tyler said when he was asked about, hey, what was that moment like? That's what he said.
Just dap each other up. There wasn't really a conversation. We're just trying to get going as an offense, so there wasn't too much. But Spencer's my guy. We preparing every single week. We're going to continue to do that, and we're going to continue to all get better as an offense.
Yeah, I can confirm that happened. I watched it happen. It was kind of like just a moment, and it was just like, okay, go get him, and so Spencer's been in this scenario before. It wasn't worse than the last time he got benched. At least the crowd wasn't up there chanting, "We want Shough," like they were chanting, "We want Caleb" back at Oklahoma, right? But we'll hear from Spencer in a second. But what is kind of your take on that? Because I don't know, like when you get benched, when you're the starter and suddenly you're the backup, like that can go a lot of different ways, and we'll see how he handles it.
Yeah, and I think maybe that was part of the thing too with this team. You mentioned there was no talk or kind of heads up about this, going to make the switch. And I thought Shough did okay for just getting the tap on the shoulder and getting thrown into the mix there. But yeah, I don't know. It's really frustrating because I think you had to make the move, though, from what you were seeing on the field with Spencer. You had mentioned the fact that he had kind of reverted back to last year's ways. It wasn't looking pretty, even though the score was close. Did you have any kind of hope they were going to be able to move down the field? It wasn't clicking. And I don't know what's happened with Spencer since that Chicago game, but he hasn't been the same dude at all. And really not concerned, but just a big problem we've seen last year when he was running around and scrambling, being careless with the football. And it happened again in this game. And I credit the defender, obviously coming over and giving a big chop to knock the ball out. But in the end, Spencer's got to take care of it better. So I'm looking forward to the Shough era now. We'll see what happens, because this team has to know what it has going into next season.
Yeah, I mean, Spencer's not alone in the ball security issue department, but it definitely has been a problem for him. And just to kind of hear what Spencer had to say, because who knows when's the next time we're going to hear from him.
Right.
Here's what he said about kind of getting benched, how that went, and how he's going to handle it.
Yeah, I mean, we came out of the half, didn't have a great drive, kept getting backed up. Just really couldn't catch a rhythm. And, he said, hey, we're going to go with Tyler, get a little spark, see what's going to happen. And, it's part of the game. I understand you can't control everything, but, hey, I'm going to be a great teammate and respond the right way, be a pro about it and help in any way I can.
What's next? Like, how do you handle this week now?
I mean, I just go at it the same way. It's part of the game. I've been through adversity before. I'm going to be a good teammate, have good body language, still be a leader. So I just got to show up to work, keep a smile on my face, keep working. And, you can only control what you can. I've said that before. So I'll control what I can and keep attacking the same way.
Were you surprised at the decision?
A little bit, but, hey, no bad feelings at all with Kellen. That's my guy. He's awesome. He's been awesome all year. And, we haven't really gotten anything going on offense, the last 2 weeks. So, hey, understood. Just got to show back up and figure out what we need to get better at.
Yeah, and what I said last week, and I still feel this way, like, one thing you cannot say about the Spencer Rattler experience was that he was shortchanged, right? I mean, 8 starts, you went 1-7. Like, I get it. It wasn't all on him, but, they gave you a chance to bounce back from your worst game and you did not, right? Like, that's what this game was. We came in talking about it. That was our big thing, was like, he's getting an opportunity. The Saints could have pulled the rug out from under him at the first potential situation where it went poorly. They didn't do that. They let him come back out and give it a chance. Didn't happen. And so now you're at the point where, hey, Spencer basically got half the season. Tyler's going to get half the season. So in the sense that it was a quarterback competition in the offseason, Spencer won it. Spencer got the first shot at it. Didn't deliver, if that's how you want to frame it.
Yeah, he got
Tyler's
the benefit of the doubt last year, but had a full allotment of guys around him this season, so there's no excuses.
No, and at its best, this offense was low yield, safe, not turning the ball over, but not really doing a ton to put your stamp on things. Yeah. And at its worst, it was a turnover machine.
Right, when you whenever changed that aggressiveness that came in the Chicago game, it just all went to crap for him.
Yeah. And the numbers at the end is like Spencer went 15 to 21, 136 and an interception, 68.8 quarterback rating, also lost the fumble. Tyler Shough 17 to 30, 128, an interception, 53.2 quarterback rating. And I'm not here to absolve the quarterback of interceptions, but you watch that Tyler Shough interception and you understand, well, not much he could have done differently on that play.
That's an interception too, Jeff. You're looking at it going, it just ain't our year.
No. And I mean, ball hit Olave in the hands. And not like, it's bad enough when a receiver drops a ball like that. It's worse when it turns into an interception on the quarterback. Like if it was a fumble, you'd be like, well, okay, at least the stat doesn't go against the quarterback. Now Tyler Shough has his first career interception, and all he did was throw a perfect ball on third down. But no, and it's tough because again, like Spencer had been getting all the reps in practice. So, we talked to Tyler, and I was expecting, he was asked, hey, have you thrown to Shaheed, Chris Olave since the preseason? He said, no, not at all. He's been trying to do as much work with the scout team after practice, been throwing routes on air. But, the throw that I felt like really was if you had more time on task, if you had just some more reps, just some more comfortability of like the timing on some stuff, that stutter go to Shaheed up the sideline. Like we watched Tyler Shough hit that ball in camp multiple times. And in that moment, I just think the timing wasn't right. And, and what I'll say positively, it's the right read. It's the right throw. He had a guy screaming up, gonna take a hit. That's the throw you have to make. You got to hit it. He missed it. And you can see, I sent you the picture. Like I was right there. It was probably 4 feet away from me. On the sideline. And it is what it is, but like, that's the type of throw that, you complain, hey, he missed it. And, obviously you don't want to miss throws like that, but you watch it and you're like, all right, give him a couple weeks of reps. Does he hit that throw? And my guess would be, yes, he does. But you just don't know right now. And right now that's a miss, and you're just not hitting at an opportunity that would have maybe been the signature moment, maybe would have taken you out of that game even with a loss and said, okay, but hey, the quarterback is making plays and this guy possibly gives us the best chance to win. I don't know. Like I felt like he ran the offense well enough. The pace of the offense was good. I did not like the scheme. I did not like the play calling. We'll talk more about the play calling. And this is that play. You can see me over there. Like I got a good look at this one. But that's just where you are. Either way, like we're gonna see, and that's what I felt like had to happen in a 1-8 season, in a lost season. You couldn't come out of it feeling like we just don't know what the rookie quarterback has to offer. We are now in the part of the season where, good or bad, we're gonna find out.
Yeah, and like I said, going to LA, a big road trip against a tough defense, not ideal for the rookie, but heck, I mean, no game right now is any kind of given for this team. So yeah. Why not just throw the rook into the fire and see what happens?
Yeah, and I kind of feel like the reason it like they decided, and this is just me kind of putting 2 and 2 together, it kind of felt like in the third quarter they were just like, man, we're gonna have to pull the plug after this week. Like it's gonna have to happen. And the calculus was probably like, hey, we could either do this now and get him some reps so that next week it's not his first time and he can go into his first NFL start and have some comfortability in the offense and have done it before, or we can ride this game out with Spencer, bench him during the week, and then that's the debut and it's all on that game. And so that's kind of how it felt to me. It was, they were like, it's going to happen either way. We might as well, like, this is not an ideal scenario. He hasn't had the reps. He's not prepared as well as we want him to be. But at least if we get this out of the way now, next week will be an easier lift. Like, that's how it felt to me. And that's why I'd be stunned. And I don't know if I make the announcement today. I think Kellen should probably ride it out until Wednesday at least, if for no other reason than to force the Rams to wonder. But
yeah, I'm curious if he's going to say today, or we're still talking about it as a staff, or, you know, we've made the decision already to go with Tyler will get a start on Sunday. So like you said, we'll see if they decide to play the game of keeping it not a secret, but keeping it from the other team. But we've seen Kellen just come out and name it before when we didn't think that he was going to come out and do it. So Kellen's still full of surprises too, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. Like I normally I would be like, if this was DA, he'd be like, probably hold on to Wednesday. If this was Sean Payton, he'd probably hold on until Friday. But I don't know. And we'll see. Like, I kind of feel like this is a situation where you want to stretch it out just so you can talk to Spencer and you can go over all the tape, and then it can be a decision as opposed to like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think these types of things you do have to handle well in the locker room because, like Spencer wasn't giving up first team reps in practice. Like it wasn't like over the last few weeks, suddenly Tyler was getting 5 reps and 6 reps and then 8 reps a practice. It was 0. It was 100% Spencer, 0% Tyler. And I think the reason you do that is because you don't want to create the image that you're just slowly taking the job away from him. Right. And now, but I do think once it happens, it has to happen fully too, because you can't half-ass it. And Kellen did say, like, we're not going to go back and forth. We're going to make a decision. Yeah. And he was honest about that in the in the early season when he was like, we're behind Spencer. Like, we didn't hear a peep about Spencer potentially getting replaced until he got replaced. And I think that's going to be the same thing when Tyler takes over. Like, you're not, if Tyler struggles, you're not going to hear like, well, what if they go back to Spencer? It's when you go to him, you go to him. And that was this week. But
yeah, I'm convinced once you make that move, if it is going to be to Shough this week, it's ride or die to the end with him.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think he's going to have something to offer. I like his demeanor. I like the way he approaches the game. Hopefully he can deliver on some of these plays. He's going to be more aggressive. Like, he's going to throw interceptions and people are going to be like, whoa. And it's going to be because he's getting more aggressive. He's going to try to make plays, maybe to a fault at times. But like, that's what I think has been holding this offense back, is like, they're just not trying to make plays.
Maybe he gets into the end zone too. Hey, that'd be great.
What a world. But all right, that's that segment. We're going to cut it off on the quarterbacks. We're going to hit a break and come back and break down the duds. It's going to be, hey, offense, defense, and studs and duds, because all the duds are on offense and all the studs are on defense. At least it seems that way. But either way, Jeff Nowak, Steve Geller coming at you after the Saints lost again, 23-3 to the Bucs to drop to 1-8. It's Tyler Shough season, or at least we think it is.
Who dat?
Stick around. We'll be right back. And we are back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here alongside Steve Geller, and we are going to be going into our stock down segment. We're going to pick the duds from this here matchup, and there's a lot to choose from on the offensive side of the ball. I kind of did a catch-all in my stock up, stock down column, because it just, like, there wasn't enough time to lay out every individual stock down player on offense. If you want to check that out, it's over at WWL.com. But Steve, who, when you look at this game, when you came out of this game, who was at the top of your list of, man, that was a rough game.
Well, are we still piling on the QB, or we're done with
we already talked about the QB, so this segment's going to be kind of independent of the quarterback.
Well, then first up, Jeff, it's what happened to the Saints rushing attack. I understand, there were moments where you're playing catch up again, and you got to get involved, get the passing game going to try and get points. But the fact is, I feel like they abandoned it way too early when they were still in the game.
Yeah, 992 RAS will be happy about this one, because he said, is Kellen Moore in the duds because play calling hasn't been good? It's yes, that is correct. In my column, I just said play calling, and you can call it one thing, you can call it another thing. You come out of a game, and your running backs total rushing attempts was 6.
Come on, man.
Taysom Hill had 2 carries. One was as a traditional running back. One was as kind of the QB power. He had 6 yards, a long of 3. Alvin had 21 yards total, a long of 5. Devin Neal, who played nearly 50% of the snaps.
He did?
Yes. Carried the ball a grand total of 0 times. He did have a couple catches. He was in there, like he was involved, but did they hand him the ball one time? Absolutely not. And here's the thing, like Kellen would say, hey, we got away from it. We were playing from behind. You weren't playing from that far behind. This was a 7-3 game at halftime.
Right.
6 rushing attempts in the first half would have been a bad total. 6 rushing attempts total is embarrassing. And you weren't able to sustain drives and things got away from you. You did convert a few 3rd and longs, right? Like you would think, hey, you went 6 for 12 on 3rd down. Or was it 8 for 16? Sorry, you went 8 for 16 on 3rd down. So you were able to extend some drives, and a lot of those 3rd downs maybe came late in the game, but you converted 2 3rd and longs early in the game. You came in 1 for 27 on 3rd and long, and you converted your first 2 in the game. Suddenly they're converting all their 3rd and longs. Did that lead to more rushing attempts? Abso-freaking-lutely not. And it's just continuing a trend of like when the going gets tough, the Saints stop running. And in the games they have dedicated to the run, they've been better. The offense has been better. You put Tyler Shough in there in the second half, midway through the 3rd quarter, and asked him to throw the ball 30 times. And here's the thing. Once you went to the backup, the idea that we're playing from behind, we're trying to rally, that kind of goes out the window. Like, once you put the backup in there, I want you to just run the offense. I don't care about the clock anymore. If you can rally while he's in there, and you can find a way to create some offense and suddenly you're back in the game and then you want to get into kind of a 4-minute offense or whatever, fine. And then you can kind of get away from the run. But his first few possessions, you should be just running your standard offense. And it's the 3rd quarter. Like, I don't care if you're behind by 10 points. You're not behind by 30 points. Run the freaking ball. And the fact is, they just have not been dedicated to it enough. I didn't think they were even running the ball that poorly in this game. I thought they were, they didn't have any splash runs, but they were getting consistent 2-3 yards. It wasn't putting you behind the chains. You just didn't do it. You just gave up on it. And if you're going to try to support a young quarterback, like this is not Drew Brees, this is not Tom Brady, this is Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shough, and you've decided they're not going to get supported by a run game whatsoever. You're not running screens. This offense is milquetoast at best, and it's disappointing for a guy that was brought in to kind of modernize this offensive scheme, to add elements to it that we haven't seen. Like, this was a less exciting offense to watch than the Pete Carmichael offense. That was just the ghost of Sean Payton's offense that Pete Carmichael never seemed to really understand. Like,
he at least had some touchdowns.
This was just like, this is not how it can go. And I'm sure Kellen will take responsibility for that. I'm sure Kellen will come out today and agree, like, yeah, I got away from the run. I got to be better. But the fact is, this has happened more than one time. It's got to be fixed. You have to dedicate yourself to the run game. You have a rookie running back who you'd like to see. Not a single carry? You didn't think that was worth doing? Like, come on.
That blew my mind there too. But Jeff, I just got to wonder more and more, how bad is Kamara's ankle? Are they trying to protect him more? Or am I just looking way too far into it, thinking that he's not 100%, obviously?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't see anything in that game that really kind of struck me as, oh, he's playing hurt out there. And the thing is, like, Devin Neal was on the field for half the snap. So if you were trying to protect him, like, he wasn't out there for half the game, you just didn't run the ball anyway. It just doesn't compute for me. Like, you have to run the ball in the NFL. You have to. And it's like, well, why did Tyler look like he was constantly under duress? Well, yeah, defense is a lot easier to play when you know they're going to drop back and pass. That's why you don't want to get one-dimensional. And they just allowed it to happen. Again, this was not a 30-point game. This was, like, at worst, like a 10-point game for much of the second half.
Right.
One score, one drive and a touchdown, no matter how long it takes, and the Saints would have been right there in it. And once that happens, yeah, maybe you can get into a pass-happy mode. Maybe the clock is against you. But all I want to see is the quarterback go in there, the rookie quarterback, and have you run the offense he's supposed to run and see what happens. Instead, you have the experience of sending a quarterback in there in a terrible situation, asking him to throw the ball 30 times, and having it not go particularly well. Especially when your offense is dropping the ball left and right. Like, it's just that, like, the playmakers did not support the quarterback, the play calling did not support the quarterback, and the decision making did not support the quarterback because you benched the quarterback. So, I don't know. Like, Kellen's got to figure that out, and it's got to happen fast because, like, you got to make a decision on these quarterbacks, and right now, the only decision is, like, okay, this offense kind of stinks.
Yeah, we need Kellen to go back into that notebook that he was devised with all these plays in them, because you said milquetoast. It's been very boring. We had some deep shots, with Olave and Shaheed, just not enough, and the run game is just not existent.
Yeah, maybe young Kellen just didn't have a lot of run plays in that notebook.
It's all QB stuff.
It's like, pretend you have Saquon. How about that? Like, I get you don't have Saquon. Pretend you do. Act like you do. Just 1 week, just one time. See what happens. Because here's the thing too. Like, you're without Eric McCoy, and yes, that hurts you. But like, yeah, it hurts you more if all they have to do is just tee off on Luke Fortner all day. At least let the offensive line get downhill.
And Luke wasn't bad.
I need to go back and look. There was a couple plays that he got kind of run over on, and he was going against Vita Vea, so it's like you gotta give him a little bit of grace there. But like, you're not doing him any favors by having him pass protect 60 times.
Yeah.
Same with Trevor Penning. You know, I thought this was Trevor Penning's worst game of the season, and you know, obviously, when you take away the center, who's I'm sure been helping him out a lot over the course of the first however many games, like that's a factor. But he had one drive where he had 2 holding penalties. He also had a false start. Too many penalties in this game in general. But my big stock down, my number one stock down is just the hands for basically everyone. And like, we can complain about Juwan. At least Juwan didn't fumble into an interception. You know? Like, but yeah, Juwan had at least one like literal drop where it just hit him straight in the chest and he just put it on the ground. He seems good for one of those a game. And then he had another one. Like, there's 2 types of drops with Juwan Johnson. There's the just straight up, how did you drop that drop? And then there's the, you have an opportunity to make a play for your quarterback and you're just like never going to in the universe going to make that happen. Right? Like, there was a 4th down play where the ball hit him in the hands. He had to catch it diving. It was a tough catch, but it's like, one of these times it would be nice if you picked up your quarterback in that moment rather than let him down. And it seems like every time he has a chance to do that, he puts the ball on the ground. And then when he has these easy opportunities to make a big play, he puts it on the ground. But he does also make some of these spectacular catches, and you're like, oh, so that is in there, and you just can only do that when it doesn't really matter all that much. Because you look at the final numbers for Juwan, he had 5 catches for 53 yards. You look at the year-long stats for the tight end position, he's a top 10 tight end statistically, but then you watch it happen, and you're like, yeah! But it's not just him. Chris Olave had at least one drop where he turned that into an interception. I think he had one more that was tough. Could have made the catch, but I wouldn't call it a drop. Rashid Shaheed, it felt like every time he caught the ball, he had the ball punched out. One of them actually went for a fumble. And the Saints, what you can say about the Saints this season is the refs are just giving them potential, just gifts. It seems like every week. Like against the Patriots, there was a couple. It's like, wow, like they really called that, huh? Like saved him from a touchdown, saved him from a defensive pass interference on what would have 3rd and 27 that could have been converted. In this game, like an inadvertent whistle on a fumble return touchdown that did not impact the play whatsoever. And then it turns into a turnover. Can you imagine what would Saints fans have said if they have a play that should have been a touchdown, it gets overturned like that, and then there's the fumble? Like, we would have been livid, absolutely livid. We would have been calling for Goodell. We would have been, I don't know if we would have been boycotted because I don't think we're that mad right now in terms of like, it doesn't really matter. But like, so the Saints have gotten the benefit of some really, really sketchy officiating. And they haven't been able to take advantage of it because they've just been so bad. But yeah, Rattler fumbled. Rattler didn't take care of the ball. Rashid should have had a second fumble, or it was really close to his second fumble, but they ruled it incomplete. I actually thought he was down, but it was so close that they didn't even want to challenge it because it wasn't worth it. And then Alvin had a play where the ball got punched out and he was down by like a millisecond. So, I mean, I don't know. I asked Kellen after the game, do you think the Bucs saw something on tape or they felt like you guys are extra susceptible to punching that ball out? Because it did seem like every time they saw the ball, they were going after it. And that's just part of their game in general. But it seemed like they were extra aggressive in that game because, I mean, at least 5 different times they not only punched at the ball, but just punched it straight out way too easily.
Yeah, it's something Deuce definitely touched on post game, and it's like you have to secure the football. He was frustrated and talked about it's all fundamentals right now with this team. You got to get back to your fundamentals, which, I mean, we're in week 8 here. I mean, come on.
Reef here says the refs gave us 5 straight flags on Tyler's first drive. I don't want to hear the refs have helped us. Okay, but they were penalties. you can't complain that the refs are calling the penalties that you committed. Like, just because they're calling penalties on you doesn't mean they're against you. It just means you're playing badly. Like, they didn't call bad penalties on you. They called the penalties that occurred. Now, blowing the whistle in the middle of a fumble return for a touchdown and negating it, that's a different story. If there's an offensive pass interference that they're just not calling on Travis Rudolph, what's his name? Kyle Rudolph, tight end in the end zone of a playoff game, like, I blame the refs for that. If Nickel Roby-Coleman blows up Tommy Lee Lewis in clear sight of the referee and they just don't call the obvious pass interference, I blame the ref for that. If I'm holding and they call a hold, that's just the refs doing their job. So we can't just complain that they're calling penalties. But no, like, the Saints playmakers did not make plays. And that's just happened way too much. And it's like, if you want to say, hey, Spencer Rattler has a gripe in terms of why was I benched in this game? Because this was probably the biggest game all season where everyone other than the quarterback failed to deliver on offense. And the quarterback failed as well. But, like, you know, he didn't fumble when he hit Shaheed for a big gain up the middle of the field. Anyway, that's mine. It's like, if I can't trust my playmakers, like, and here's the thing. This is the type of situation where it's like that doesn't get fixed. That costs people their jobs. You know, like Keith Williams, I better be going to that meeting room ready to rip some heads off this week, because, like, that just can't happen.
It's so odd. I don't understand. Is it just the mentality of the team? Are players being lackadaisical kind of thing? But ball security and being able to catch the damn ball that's thrown to you has just been an issue all season right now.
Yeah. And we'll see. You know, I do think that one of the things that Tyler has a little bit of a better ability with, I'm kind of stumbling. I do think one of the better elements of Tyler's game is just accuracy in general. Like, I think he is effective in just putting the ball where it's supposed to be, making a ball more catchable. You know, like the drop for Juwan, it was like a lot of the drops for Juwan to this point in the season have been like, oh, he threw it behind him, or, you know, and he didn't make the adjustment and make the catch. And there have been others that hit him straight in the chest and he dropped. But, like, I do think that he's just a little better at placing the ball where it's supposed to go. He throws with touch more effectively, and I think that's going to help the playmakers. I think it's going to help in terms of yards after catch. Like, when you can put the ball where it needs to be, that's when a receiver can catch and run. And we didn't really see it in this game, but I do think as we go forward and with Tyler, if he's able to have more success, a lot of it's going to be that. It's going to be the ball coming out on time and the ball being delivered where it's supposed to go. Because that was one of my bigger gripes, is that in big moments for Spencer, the accuracy just went away. And,
right,
you know, like that throw to Cooks against the Bills, like, that's got to be on. Like, that's got to be on the guy, you know? First drive against the 49ers where you have a chance to get out to a lead and have some positive things happen. You leave it behind Chris and it's an incompletion, right? It seemed like every game there's one or two of those. And Tyler's not going to be perfect in that sense either, but that's what I'm hopeful for. And I think that makes a big difference, because this offense, I think it's had opportunities and he just missed them.
Missed opportunity. That could definitely be the name of this offense.
Yeah. And you know, there's too many penalties. We mentioned Trevor Penning, Jonathan Bullard, you know, the final snap of the first quarter, rather. They're not snapping the ball. Everyone in the building knows they're not snapping the ball, except for apparently Jonathan Bullard, who gives them a free 5 yards in that situation. Can't do that. But that's really all I have. And I basically named everybody in that one segment of the playmakers. So, you know, I don't know if anyone escaped, really. Brandon Cooks, I don't feel like, had a bad play, so I'll give him credit for not being in that group. But otherwise, pretty much everybody had a mistake. But anyway, anything else for you before we move?
No, it's funny you say Brandon Cooks. He's another one. I'm like, is he on this team?
What are you talking about? He had 3 catches. There are times where I feel like Brandon Cooks is the only guy capable of making a catch. Seriously.
I feel you on that. I guess that you can say that with anybody. There's just not enough.
Well, I do, you know, Devon Vele did get a lot more snaps in this game.
Yeah.
And so, like, and I appreciated that. But, like I said this before, like Brandon Cooks, when you throw the ball to him, he catches it. And you say what you want about his involvement, how much they're using him. Like, I wish other guys were catching the ball as consistently as Brandon Cooks is, at least when he's getting opportunities to catch the ball. Right? Like, and we'll see. But either way, yeah.
Fun times.
Fun times. All right. Who dat? Go Saints. Jeff Nowak, Steve Geller. That was the stock down segment. We're going to flip things around. We're going to talk about some of the things that went well in this game. There were things that went well. They were just on one side of the ball, right? A lot of times, like against the Bears, it was like, man, what do I find of things that went well? It was tough. In this game, it's pretty easy to find the things that went well. It's just that they were very exclusively on the defense. So we'll get into it because I thought the defense had probably its best game of the season. Either way, who dat? Go Saints. We'll be right back. And we are back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here alongside Steve Geller. We spent about the first, 50 minutes or so kind of complaining about all the things that went wrong. And as we do, even when things are bad, we try to find some silver linings, and the opposite is true. When things are good, we try to complain about something. And there haven't been that many situations where things were so good we had a hard time finding things to complain about. But in this case, it's a very clear line of like, okay, what was good and what was bad? What was bad was the offense. What was good was the defense. And, in particular, the goal line defense. And
put the hard hat on.
We can point and say like, okay, good on them. They delivered at the goal line, but like this has actually been a trend. We've seen this a few times. Against the Patriots, they had a really strong goal line stand. Last week against the Bears, they had a really strong goal line stand, and the Bears actually got bailed out by their fourth down snap being a penalty, because otherwise the Saints would have had to stop inside the 5-yard line against the Bears. So, I guess there are worse things to be than a team that you just cannot run the ball in against. And I would not have guessed that this defensive line would be that group. But man, they just don't give an inch in those situations. And you got to give credit to Demario Davis, to the linebackers for filling, Jonathan Bullard, Davon Godchaux. Like these guys are setting that line and they're like, you're not getting an inch. And the first one, they actually stopped 5 straight rushing attempts from the 1-yard line, because the first one was a penalty that moved it like 3 inches closer. And then they did it 4 more times and really didn't even get that close on any of them. And the Bucs were so stubborn. Like if they had just play action one time and roll out, it's touchdown. Like the fact that they were unwilling to do that was kind of hilarious. But like that set the tone for the game, and should have at least set the tone for the game. And he finally gave the crowd something to cheer about. And Spencer Rattler gave the Bucs that touchdown a few plays later. So it kind of ruined that moment that felt like it was kind of changing the momentum. And he did the hard part, which was getting off the goal line. But so you have to give them the credit for that. And I did ask Chase Young about that sequence after the game, and I thought he had a good answer. So let's listen to it.
Obviously, I think it was 8 stops in a row without penalty, and they got out the 4th down. What was the key there?
Fight. I mean, between the 2-yard line, I mean, you just got to fight. Just push them back as hard as you can. I mean, we know they're going to run the ball. Everybody know they're going to run the ball. You just got to stop it. And, I feel like hats off to our interior D-line, Gotchow, Breeze, Bull, Shep. They stood tall.
Drew Brees?
I like that he calls him Breeze on it. Like, it's kind of like when so Kellen Moore calls Brandon Cooks Cooksy. Tyler Shough, I don't know if he does this intentionally, but he calls him Cookie. But I think he meant Cooksy, but he calls him Cookie, which is just funny because it's like, I don't think Brandon Cooks would appreciate being called Cookie. Now, if you're talking about Jared Cook, you could get away with Cookie. Or Dalvin Cook, you can call him Cookie. Brandon Cooks probably prefers Cooksy. Anyway, Breeze. But no, I think that's what that is. It's like you have a defensive group that's not winning on every down, but when you're at the goal line, it's all just about like who wants it more. And the Saints wanted it more. The Saints defense wanted it more. And I think that says a lot about the spirit that exists in that group and how Brandon Staley's coaching them up, because they believe like you're not getting it. You're not moving that ball a yard.
After getting gashed by the Bears, that was shocking to me, Jeff.
Well, again, but even against the Bears, they held up on the goal line. Like, it's just been a strength of this group is that kind of goal line defense. Because it's not really your run defense. Like, you could go play Madden and try to run goal line defenses in the middle of the field. Doesn't work. But like your goal line packages are very specific, and it's just something the Saints are good at. And, like in a season where you went differently, and so games can come down to that. Like, there's a big difference between a defense that you get down to the goal line and it's just you walk in touchdowns, and a team that's just forcing field goals. The Saints they forced fourth down twice. But I think that's this game also, and I've talked about this before, is like, if I'm a head coach, I am never, ever kicking a field goal inside the 5-yard line unless it's a go-ahead kick in the last 5 minutes of a game. There's just no way, because, and I think Greg Olsen talked about this. I read Greg Olsen's comment on this, and he's 100% right. Like, I would much rather have 0 points and force you to run offense inside your own 5-yard line than take 3 points and give you the ball at the 35-yard line where you're like 2 first downs away from getting those 3 points back anyway. Because a drive that starts at the 35 is like, okay, you're going to score on that at least 50% of the time, or at least you should. Now, the Saints, different story, but like how the Bucs scored that touchdown is exactly why you go for it, because they didn't get it, but they still forced the Saints to operate in a part of the field where one mistake is either, a safety or a pick six, or you get a, or you force a 3 and out, and suddenly they're punting from the back line of their own end zone, and that gives you a chance to score again. So that's what every team should do in that scenario. And I've seen the Saints punt. I've seen the Saints kick multiple times this year inside the 5, and it drives me nuts every time, because you should never, ever skip an opportunity to try to score a touchdown from the 2-yard line to take 2 points, or to take 3 points in kickoff, ever. It's terrible coaching, and the Bucs understand that. I hope the Saints learn, because they saw firsthand what that can do to you. So, but either way, that's not what this is about. Like, goal line defense, and then it happened again in the second half, and they stopped him 3 times. That time, the Bucs gave up trying to run the ball and started throwing it. And Kool-Aid McKinstry, because goal line defense, it's like, okay, you got a wide receiver over there, you got to be one-on-one, you got to win. And he won twice. Should have had an interception. That's the only negative I'll point out. It's like, man, you make that play, then you get the ball at the 20. That's such a swing. Instead, it's a pass breakup. It's a nice play by him, but it could have been a game-changing play. Not that
you mentioned Kool-Aid. I'd put him in the stock-up category.
Yeah, he's next on my list.
Okay.
But no, so just the goal line defense, like a very specifically, fantastic. And you got to give him a lot of credit for that. But yeah, go ahead. Talk about Kool-Aid.
No, just an impressive game for him. And, obviously the Buccaneers, we know they don't have their top targets available. But out there, I thought he looked good, sticking to his guy. And like you mentioned, though, the only one downside, you wish he had been able to come out with the interception. But overall, I thought he had one of his better games against the Bucs.
Yeah, and I would argue they did have their top target available in that Emeka Egbuka is the future of that passing offense. Like they may get Chris Godwin and Mike Evans back eventually, but Egbuka is their dude now. Like he is the future of that offense at the wide receiver position. Mike Evans is still a good player, but he's got a broken collarbone or whatever, clavicle, same thing. Like who knows what he comes back as? He's not going to be their one. Ibuka's their one. So he had that's a tough matchup and he handled it. Like I don't think. Well, what did Egbuka do in that game? 3 catches for 35 yards on 9 targets.
Yeah.
So you got to give Kool-Aid credit. And we were talking about this in the pregame. So the whole is that a sword or a seatbelt? Because I thought for a long time it was like I have a sword and I'm putting the sword away. But now I think I was wrong and it's a seatbelt. I think he's strapping it
locked down.
Yeah, like he's locked it, but like you're putting the seatbelt on you. So I'm not sure if I necessarily understand that. It's also like they call a field goal at the last second where you're kind of running on and having to do it with a running clock. They call that a Mayday field goal. But Mayday doesn't make sense to me because that means you're crashing. I think it should be called a fire drill. Because you have to stay under control, but everyone's like, this is an emergency. Mayday is like you're crashing either way, and you're just trying to have someone know where the wreckage is so they can rescue you. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Either way, that's just terminology. But
when you talk to Kool-Aid, ask him about that.
Yeah, strapped up. This is what we're talking about because the games are so miserable to watch. But yeah, Kool-Aid, the young secondary I thought played well. I thought the Saints tackled pretty well in this game. Sean Tucker developed superpowers whenever he goes to the Superdome. I did think there was a few more yards in his game than I wanted to see. But at the end of the day, 12 for 42, 3.5. Rachaad White, 13 for 35. That's 2.7. Josh Williams, which cool to see Josh Williams, former LSU guy. I remember watching him at the Combine, and I was like, that dude's should be on an NFL roster. So it's good to see him on an NFL roster. Really hardworking kid. He had 4 carries for 11 yards. Sean Tucker's longest run was 15 yards. So, I mean, when you consider that one run went for 15 yards and the other 11 went for 27, they handled the run pretty well. Yeah. So take that.
You're still looking for more stock ups, or you got more?
Well, I mean, Chase Young in general.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go to.
You look at. He didn't have a massive game in any particular part, but you look at his line and it's like you got it. Whenever you have a number in, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different categories that you can have a number in and not a dash. That means there's nothing. And he had a number in 10 of them. That's a pretty good sign that you had an all around good day. Because
it was hard. It was hard post game coming up with a player of the game, and I gave it to Chase Young.
You have to. 4 combined tackles, 1 solo, 1.5 sacks, which 14.5 yards lost on those sacks. That's a big number for yardage lost. 2 quarterback hits, 1 tackle for loss, no interceptions. That's the only stat he did not record. 1 pass defensed, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery. Forced fumble and recovery was in a huge situation because it was right after a Rashid Shaheed fumble late in the first half, where it's like the Saints really need something good to happen. They're moving the ball, then it's a fumble. The Bucs get it. That was right after the Antoine Winfield return for a touchdown that got stopped on the inadvertent whistle, which the Bucs should be livid about. And then instead of the Bucs scoring a touchdown and making it 14-0, you get the ball at about midfield with a chance to score, and they did put 3 points on the board. So I mean, like, he made a massive impact in that game, and there's a lot of situations on this team that's like, yes, they're 1-8. Yes, this sucks. Yes, everything's miserable. But you got to look beyond this season and say, okay, well, Chase Young's going to be here for a while. Chase Young is just signed it's the first of his 3-year contract, right? Like, you have Jonas Sanker, you have Kool-Aid McKinstry, you have Quincy Riley, you have Kelvin Banks and Taliese Fuaga, you have young quarterbacks, you have a young running back who didn't get enough touches, but whatever. Like, you want to see Alontae Taylor, who I think has been playing really well lately. Like, you can look at it and be miserable that the record sucks, but you can also look at it and say, if that's the Chase Young you're going to get on a consistent basis, then that contract was well worth it. And suddenly you feel like you have a pass rusher who can impact games, and you can build on that. And so I did feel good about Chase, and I felt good about Chase last week too. I think he's, he had a rough start in terms of, I think he was getting his feet under him against the Patriots. I think getting his wind back was a factor. The last 2 weeks, I felt like he's been a really strong contributor. He's been getting off the line. He's been impacting, the passing game. He's been batting down balls and getting to the quarterback. So if he can be kind of that general havoc-inducing player for you, that's a good thing.
Yeah, and we know with him, the issue's not the talent. It's definitely the ability to stay on the field.
Yeah, and so that's my hope for him is the rest of the season you can stay healthy and because I mean, like, he doesn't want to have a calf injury, and that's. But when we were talking about this in the pregame, like, I think the reason it's like the Saints went into the season with open eyes. Like, yeah, you're hoping to win more games than you have. You're hoping to at least make this a competitive situation. But the one thing you couldn't have happen with Chase Young is you're dealing with a calf injury and you're so frustrated that you try to force him back too early, and suddenly the star pass rusher you signed for a 3-year deal misses the first year and a half of that because your calf injury turns into a blown Achilles and you're shit out of luck. So, like, I know as frustrating as it was to watch him sit out that first 5 weeks, that's, handling it that way, playing the long game with that player to make sure it doesn't become like, that was smart. So it's good to see him back.
Definitely. And, everybody wants to complain about the contract, but you look at, pass rushers in the NFL, and I don't know what you think you're going to pay Chase Young or someone else would.
No, $17 million for a guy who impacts the game like he did in that game is well worth it. And you can continue to build around that. Like, they're going to get a high pick. It would sure be nice if they could just draft a stud pass rusher to put on the other side. But we'll see. Did I say a top 5 pick? I genuinely don't know. They're in line for the number 1 pick right now. I don't think it's going to happen. But
I think saying top 5 is pretty fair, Jeff.
I hope so. I sure hope so. If they don't, well, here's the thing. It's a win-win, because if they don't get a top 5 pick, it's going to be because over the final half of the season, Tyler Shough plays well enough to go win you 3 or 4 games. And if that's the case, then you have a top 5 pick and you might not have to take a quarterback. If you have the number 1 overall pick, it means that Tyler Shough did not play well enough to lead you to some wins over some bad teams in the Titans, the Jets, and the Dolphins, and whoever else. And then you have the number 1 pick and you probably do take a quarterback. So you already got the win out of the way, so you're not going winless.
You said Titans, Jets, and Dolphins. Didn't they all win yesterday?
I know the Jets and the Dolphins did. The Dolphins beat the shit out of the Falcons, which good for them. Good for the Falcons. The team that would love to be able to go in there and say, but we had to play our backup, except the backup you played is Kirk Cousins, who's getting paid $40 million this year. So not exactly a built-in excuse for you. The way
my bad. Tennessee got housed by Indianapolis.
Yeah, Tennessee, I never worry about them winning. The Jets put up 39 points on the Bengals, which apparently anyone can score on the Bengals. Okay, a few others. I mentioned Jonas Anker and Alante Taylor. Those 2 guys have been tackling out of their minds. Like, I love that part of how this season has gone. Is Alante Taylor, I was a little worried early on because he was missing a lot of tackles. He seemed out of position too much of the time. He's really come on strong lately. He's been playing well in coverage, and I think he's really kind of proven to me that they should be trying to extend him. He's like the one guy on the roster that is going up for a contract, and I'm just like, please pay him. Like Shaheed, we'll see, and we'll talk more about the trade deadline as we go forward here. But, like, pay Alante Taylor, please.
No, you mentioned the trade deadline. Alante is a name. I don't know if he'll be here.
I'm not trading Alante. I'm not. I think he's a good player, and I think he fits what this defense needs it to do. I was concerned the first few weeks. I think he's really come on strong over the past month, and so I don't think he gets traded. And I'd be stunned if he gets traded. Now, Rashid Shaheed, Pete Werner, Brandon Cooks. I think there's one more that I'm trying to think of. Demario Davis, even I could see it. If he wants to get traded, I think it's a situation kind of like Alvin, where if he says, I don't want to go anywhere, you kind of grant his wish because he's that important of a piece to your culture. And I don't think it's worth alienating a guy in that situation. But if he wants to go to a place where he can be a contender, same thing with Cam Jordan, and there's a deal on the table, like, yeah, I think you consider that. Dylan Radins too. I think you could consider moving him to a team that needs offensive line depth. But either way, just one more for me, and it's no one in particular, but I've been really, really critical of the special teams in all aspects. They didn't do anything spectacular in this game, but they did the job, and I'll settle for that. I will settle for even on the special teams line, and they did. I thought they covered well on kickoffs. Mason Tipton had a nice kickoff return. I think it was like a 37-yarder. So that's one of the first times this year I saw a kickoff return be a difference maker. Devin Neal, I thought, handled kickoffs reasonably well. He had one sketchy where he probably should have just taken a knee and he ran it out, but he got to the 20. So at least it was a wash. Kai Kroger pinned the ball inside the 20 multiple times.
Like you said, we've been tough on him, so shout out to Kroger.
One of them was to the 13. I want that to be closer, but the first one, he punted from the 42, got it to the 8. That's a win. Anytime you can pin a team inside their 10, that's a win for the punter. That's what you need from him. He had to punt deep inside his own territory. He had a 55-yard kick. It was returned like 8 yards, so it's like a 46, 47-yard kick. That flips the field. That's a win. Blake Grupe, I think it was 48 yards. I didn't write it down, but he only had one chance to take a kick, and he made it. I'm a little critical of the decision not to attempt a 59-yarder. It was 48 yards.
Agreed. I think they didn't want to damage his psyche anymore, though.
Yeah, and I think, like, okay, he made a kick. Do we want to put him out there in a bad situation where he's, a miss is like, well, it was a 59-yarder, but people are still going to talk about it like you missed again.
Yeah.
And so I think he just kind of held on to it. But I really would like to see, like, he can make a 58, 59-yarder. And I'd like to see them have the confidence in him to take it, especially indoors. But it wouldn't have changed that game. So just in general, like, there was I don't know how much value was gained on special teams, but you didn't lose value on special teams, which I'll settle for that based on how things have gone. Like, that's a win for me.
No, it's wild to say, but that was probably Kroger's best game that we've seen from him.
Yeah, it's always tough to value to gauge the value of a punter. But he delivered what you needed, and he did not have any moments, like when you punt from the 42, that ball cannot go into the end zone. It just cannot. It absolutely cannot. Because he did that earlier in the season. It was a very similar situation. I think he punted from the 41 and it went into the end zone. And it's like, that's a 20-yard swing. I'd rather have the quarterback go out there and pooch punt. So yeah. Anyway, anything else you want to mention?
No, I think that's about touches all the goodness that we can extract from that game.
Yeah. And I think we have plenty of time to kind of go over a lot of the other things that happened in this game, and we're halfway through the season, right? And it's the NFL is funny. That meme where you have a guy looking happy out one side of the bus at like the sun and the daylight, and then the other half is like all depressed because he's looking at like a stone wall. And I feel like that, like, that's the NFL season. Like, you get to the halfway mark, and on one side of the bus is the teams that everything's going well for, and they're like, wow, we still have a half of the NFL season left. I'm so excited. And then on the other side of the bus, you have the Saints and the Jets and the Dolphins, at least from a reporter standpoint, I mean, fan standpoint too, probably. And you're just like, oh my God, there's still half the season left. We're not even halfway done with this shit. Like, that's how I feel, but
it wears on you. I know everyone's like, boo hoo, you guys you get paid to cover football, but right now these are some dark days. It's rough.
Yeah, it's not even about me. It's just like, that's a long time left to go in a lost season. Like, at least last year you started 2-0, and then you had the loss. Like, there was a couple of weeks at the beginning of the season where you felt like, oh, we got a chance at this. Even when you're 2-4, you're like, okay, we can turn this thing around. And then obviously it didn't get turned around, but you get to this point in the season and you're already done. So Leo added, Chase points out that Kai Kroger had a 32-yard punt. You're right. But there's a big difference between they were both 33-yard punts if we want to get specific. But there's a big difference in a 33-yard punt from your own 20 and a 33-yard punt from their 42. Because a 33-yard punt from their 42 is a pin punt inside their 10-yard line. I don't want a 43-yard punt from the so that's why net punting doesn't work. Because like sometimes, yes, net is not going to look good when you're punting from that position, but contextually, You have to be able to understand that. But it is kind of funny. I think I said he didn't have a 31-yard punt, but he did have a 33-yard punt. It just, in that situation, I'm perfectly fine with a 33-yard punt.
Leo, 2 spots down, did mention he gave a little shout out to Fortner.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't trust PFF grades until I go back and look. And sometimes if I feel like someone had a good game, I'll go and see what they said to verify my own opinion. But I oftentimes will not trust PFF's opinion.
For me, I was so deathly afraid in this matchup. And like you mentioned, Vita Vea still had caused some problems, but overall, I thought Fortner did all right. I wasn't like, oh my God, look what this guy's doing.
Yeah, and it's tough to be critical of anyone too much when the offense was forced to drop back and pass 52 times, or commanded by the coaching staff to drop back and pass that many times. Like, that's just bad. That's what's going to happen. But anyway, who dat? Go Saints. We're going to come back with kind of a quick mailbag, have one main topic I want to get into. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of questions to talk about. Steve, how you feeling? You going to make it? You going to be okay?
Not really. I gave myself food poisoning, so I'm not feeling great. I'm playing hurt.
Well, we just watched the NFL equivalent of food poisoning. So
yes. So that made yesterday even worse on me.
I woke up this morning. I just felt terrible. I don't even know what happened. I must have ingested something that didn't agree with me. And
you ingested some black and gold Kool-Aid.
And when what I ingested was just the worst football game I've watched in a long time, or at least on one side of the equation. So good stuff. Fantastic. Woo-hoo. Yes. Who dat? Go Saints. Jeff Nowak. Steve Geller. I can't point to something on your side of the screen. What am I trying to do? I'm a moron. Jeff Nowak. Steve Geller. Follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. You can follow Steve at Steve Geller WWL. You can follow the show at Saints_pod. You can check out all the latest news, notes, and analysis. We'll have Kellen Moore on WWL later in the day. You can catch that interview either live on 105.3, 870, or the Odyssey app, or you can just check it out on the website because it'll be there too. All that
6:30
and more. Yeah, it's all there. Who dat? Go Saints. We're still doing this thing. We'll be back at you later in the week. Shuck it up, man. It's the new day. Who dat? Peace out. Bye. All right. We actually made good time, so we can have a full secret mailbag. Rather, like, this was one of the first episodes in a while. We didn't just go way too long and have like 5 minutes to do a mailbag. So
I think a lot of it is too. It's like we're beaten down and don't need to expand on much.
Yeah, but I am always curious what the fans have to say.
Sure. No, I meant like from our timing of things. It's like,
yeah. The less time I can spend talking about that game, the better. Yeah. Anyway, the film's going to be fantastic to watch. But all right, you want to give us kind of a lead in for this one?
We are back here on Inside Black and Gold. Steve Geller, Jeff Nowak, our special hidden secret mailbag edition. And folks, we definitely appreciate you for listening, chiming in, giving us the input, just because we're going through some tough times watching this team, and we know you are too.
Yeah, no one's having fun watching the Saints right now. No one. I don't think the Saints are even having fun watching the Saints right now.
As a whole, Louisiana sports is just rough.
Yeah, man, everything's bad. So Pelicans haven't won a game. The LSU, at least they fired the coach, so we can at least stop getting mad about watching Brian Kelly throw a temper tantrum.
Roll wave.
But no, so this is a mailbag, but I do come in kind of loaded up with a question that I just want to answer because, I kind of was going back and forth. Thomas, I don't know how you pronounce his name, Penna, is very critical of Mickey Loomis, and I agree with being critical of Mickey Loomis. And I go into this saying, yeah, be fully critical of the draft decisions, of a lot of the choices made from like 22, 23, 24 in terms of the Derek Carr and trying to stay competitive and pushing, like kicking the can down the road, as they say. It would have been a much smarter decision in hindsight to just pull the plug after Sean Payton left and say, let's just start from scratch. We'll get a new head coach. We'll build our own thing. Instead, they tried to stretch it out with Dennis Allen and Derek Carr and that whole thing, and they pushed a lot of the cap hits down rather than eating them right away like the Bucs did. Right, the Bucs were in a very similar situation, moving on from Tom Brady, and rather than try to stretch it out, they went with the cheaper option, which at the time was Baker Mayfield. They didn't pay him much to bring him in. They pay him a lot now because he's earned it. But like they just ate all the hits and then came back, and so suddenly they're in a better situation. The Saints tried to stretch it out, and it was a bad decision. That said, the criticism Thomas has, or Thomas, the criticism he laid on this week is not that those decisions were bad. It's that the rebuild isn't happening in the right way. And so I'm just going to read what he said, and we'll go from there. He says, some of the mistakes you could argue are acceptable if they were isolated, but what people aren't seeing is the overarching bad management, because in any rebuild with an older roster, a good management would 1, acquire more draft picks, 2, get significantly cheaper, 3, get significantly younger, usually do that through trading older players, trading back, being effective with UDFA signings, signing cheaper and younger free agents. He says this has not happened and that things have actually gone in the opposite direction. The roster is old and expensive. The cap continues to be horrible, blah, blah, blah. You're giving away draft picks. He says that these are all indefensible moves and that any other GM would be fired. Now, in the sense that other GMs would probably be fired by now, you're 100% right. Because GMs don't typically get 2 decades in a job. And when you've missed the playoffs this many years in a row, a lot of times, yes, the GM would be on his way out. And if the Saints decided to fire the GM tomorrow, I wouldn't argue the decision, because I think when you've missed the playoffs 5 years in a row and you were missing the playoffs this year, which would be the 5th year in a row, yeah, the GM a lot of times would be fired. That said, I don't disagree with the premise of this argument. I don't disagree with the conclusion of this argument. I disagree with the premise of a few of the points, in that he's arguing that this Saints team has not gotten significantly younger. And that's a crazy thought to me. When you, I don't know how you watch this team play and you watch all the young players. You watch a rookie left tackle, a second-year right tackle. You watch a rookie starting safety. You watch a rookie starting outside corner and a second-year starting outside corner. You watch Danny Stutzman taking reps for Pete Werner, right? You watch a rookie quarterback taking over for a second-year quarterback, and that's your quarterback room. And you're telling me that's not a young roster? No. Now, I think what people get caught up in is the average age, which, yeah, the Saints are going to have a higher average age because you take DeMario Davis, Cam Jordan, and Taysom Hill off this roster, and suddenly they get 2 years younger just in the average. So this team has gotten significantly younger. And, it's tough to gauge this number because you look at average age, and it really depends on when you take it. Because, for example, this year, if you looked at average age coming out of training camp, Taysom Hill's not on the active roster. So you took a 35-year-old out of the equation. So the average age is going to go down. But just for comparison's sake, the Philly Voice actually tracks this every year. And I've been able to go back and they see, okay, this coming out of training camp every year, this is where each roster was. And so this year, the Saints average age coming out of training camp, again, that didn't include Taysom Hill, was 26.2 years old. That's good for 20th in the NFL. That sounds high for a roster that is still rebuilding. But keep in mind, in 2024, that number was 26.75 years, and that's 29th in the NFL. In 2023, it was 27.4 years old, 32nd in the NFL. So you are getting younger. So in that point, the idea that they haven't gotten younger just misses. Secondly, get significantly cheaper. You could fire the GM yesterday. There are no triggers other than just not signing any players to get cheaper. You cannot eat the cap hits that you've pushed down the road any faster than they have done. And you are in the process of eating those cap hits. You already ate Marshawn Lattimore's. You already ate Michael Thomas's. You already ate Jameis Winston's. You're in the process of eating Derek Carr's, which was kind of a surprise. this next year, you're going to be looking at it and saying they're probably going to eat Taysom Hill, Demario Davis, and Cam Jordan. And then you're coming out the other side. Now, what I'll say about that is when you're a team that has a veteran quarterback, it's hard to get cheaper. Once you as a team decide you are not going to pay a veteran quarterback and you're just going to let it ride with rookie quarterbacks, with a rookie quarterback, a second-year quarterback, your roster has gotten cheaper significantly. Just in that sense alone, because for the next 4 years, at minimum, you are going to be looking at a rookie scale contract. If that's Tyler Shough, that changes after 4 years because you'll have to pay him. But beyond that point, if it's not Tyler Shough, then you got another rookie. So you're a cheaper roster with a young quarterback. So you are getting cheaper.
I think there's a lot of anger towards some of the contracts that have been doled out, like a Juwan Johnson.
And you can be mad about Juwan Johnson. I would argue that that's a market rate tight end contract for a guy that's in the top 10 statistically from the tight ends. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm not a big fan of Juwan Johnson right now either. You can quibble with that, but at the end of the day, you got to pay some people. You got to have veterans on your roster. And if the only way to rebuild, if your take is that the only way a GM can be in a rebuild is if he cuts all the veteran players and just says, we're only starting rookies and second-year players and third-year players and guys on rookie contracts, then I don't know. I disagree with the fact that that's what a good GM does. And here's the thing. I'm not defending Mickey Loomis. I think there's been a ton of mistakes. I think the draft has been a disgrace over the past, 7 years in terms of how many missed picks there have been. I think the draft asset management has been a problem. And that's the other point that I agree with in principle, that I'd like the Saints to be collecting more assets. What I'll disagree with is the idea that we can look at the trades they made in the offseason and say, this is how many assets they have, when I see the trade deadline and moves you make at the trade deadline as an extension of offseason moves, right? Because if I trade Pete Werner and Rashid Shaheed and who else, like, and I pick up, a 3rd round pick, a 5th round pick, whatever, that all kind of comes together. The Devon Bailey trade is the one that I can see people getting mad at because it's a 4th round pick. But just for perspective, like, hey, what if I go and trade Rashid Shaheed for a 3rd round pick, right? That not only replaces the pick I gave away, it creates a scenario where suddenly Devon Bailey is a featured player in my offense, which was kind of the point. Yes, he's a little older. He's 27, but he's in year 2 of his rookie deal. And I don't know why I have to keep explaining to people that when you go on a 2-year Mormon mission, you're not getting tackled. So, like,
we just haven't seen the payout from Valet yet.
No, but he did have a season high in snaps. He got 37 snaps in that game, I want to say. It was the most he's had in a game. And here's the thing, like, you have 3 receivers who you have to get on the field ahead of him, or at least relatively close. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed are going to be your top 2. You only get 3 receivers on the field at any given time. So they want to get Cooks out there. That he's a veteran. They want him in the offense. I'd be fine if they cut some of Cook's snaps back. But again, you are incorporating him into the offense. He got 5 targets in this game. How many targets is your 3rd wide receiver supposed to get? He's got 5 catches on the season. 4 of them are for first downs. 1 of them was a touchdown. Also drew 2 pass interference penalties. So you got to give the receiver credit for that. You're also in a situation where he showed up at the end of training camp. They've incorporated into the offense. He's been here for 2 months. He also dealt with an injury. So there has been a little slow going. That said, if he's a part of your offense, then I don't have an issue with that trade. The other trades that we've seen, they traded for Devon Godshaw. They gave away a 2026 7th round pick to make that trade happen. Sure, we can get mad about them using a 7th round pick, but you needed a nose tackle. You had to add that player one way or the other.
I would definitely. I don't think anyone's batting an eye over a 7th rounder.
You'd be surprised. Awesome Richards, another trade. Now, Thomas decided to correct me on this because I said they gave up a 7th round pick to get him. I was wrong. They actually gave up a 6th round pick to get him. But keep in mind, they also got a 7th round pick back in that deal, and it was a 2028 6th round pick. Who the hell knows where this team's going to be in 2028? We have no idea. So I don't have an issue with that. And just on the general premise of the idea that, hey, you want to be collecting assets? Well, they did. They turned a 2028 6th round pick into a player that filled a position you needed right away. And you still have an asset in a draft pick. You just traded back in the draft 3 years from now. So, I mean, you turned 1 draft pick into a player and a pick. So I don't have an issue with that. And again, 2028, I may be gone. I don't even know if I'll be covering this team in 2028, so I'm not going to complain about that. And then the other one was Jalen Polk, which was by definition a trade for the future because he's not going to play this year. You gave away a 2027 sixth and a 2028 seventh rounder for a guy that you expect to be a part of your future.
Folks lost their mind on that one too.
Right. But again, like we're talking about, why are they not rebuilding fast enough? And like, what is that move? So I don't know. Like, I think there's things to be critical of, but the idea that the GM isn't actively rebuilding this roster by getting younger and trying to roll back the salary cap and making trades that bring in pieces. Now, like you can talk about asset collection. There's two types of assets. Players are also assets, right? So a draft pick is an asset. A player is also an asset. In this case, they've turned late round assets for the most part into young players on controllable deals that are going to be on this roster for multiple seasons. The only one that you can say they didn't move a late round pick was Devon Vele, who, if you free up space by trading a wide receiver, which I think they will, suddenly the complaint that he's not getting enough snaps, that's going to go away because he's going to be a featured player for you. So I don't know. Like again, like you want to fire Mickey Loomis, go for it. I would not argue that point in a second. I think he has enjoyed job security for a length of time that makes no sense for a team that has struggled mightily and failed so miserably to move on after Sean Payton. Like there's so many decisions, moments that you can criticize. I just don't think that saying they're not rebuilding is a reasonable criticism because they clearly are. Very clearly are. They've gotten younger, they've gotten cheaper, and over the next 2 years, that cap table is going to come down fast. But there's only so fast that you could scale it back. And so that's the take. I told him I would bring it up, but that was just way too much to type. So that's it. And you can disagree with me on that point, but like, I don't know how you watch this team play and don't understand that. Like one of the reasons they're 1-8 or 1-7 is because they're, just for example, like, hey, if you went full bore after Aaron Rodgers and whether he would have come here or not, he said he wouldn't, but like you could probably went and signed a veteran quarterback that would have this team with like 3 wins.
Yeah, you could have had Carson Wentz.
Right. If Derek Carr was here, you'd probably be 3-5. But that's not what you want. You want to develop young players. And if you lose a lot of games in the process, you're okay with that because that's what a rebuild is. And that's what the Saints are doing. The second they decided not to replace Derek Carr with a veteran, that's the team leaning into a rebuild. And, you can complain, they paid Brandon Cooks, they paid Ike Adam, they paid Justin Reed. But like
these
part
are
of a
big
rebuild
money deals, man.
Part of a rebuild too is having veteran players who can, like, you need veterans. This idea that you can just rebuild a roster and if only first and second year players, that's just not how, like, if that's your idea, like that's what you want a GM to do because you think that's a good GM. Like, I don't think that's a good GM. Like the Bucs didn't give away all their good players, all their veteran players. Like, think about how the Bucs rebuilt. Like, we're talking about, the Bucs did it right because they did it right away. But you know who they didn't move on from? Levante David, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Like, they stuck with veteran players. So I don't know. That's my take there. And again, like, this isn't me defending Mickey Loomis. This is me defending the idea that they are very much full-scale rebuilding. And that's not what I'm going to be critical of.
No, and I think part of the problem is that folks believe that this Saints team doesn't think they're rebuilding.
Yeah, well, right. Like, because they're very clearly rebuilding.
Yes.
And they talked around it in the preseason.
Right.
But we are what we are. But okay, that was a long rant. I did want to get it off because I told the guy I would get to it. Let's take a quick break and come back and really get into viewer questions. And I do feel bad we haven't gotten to enough of those, but we will. So
rapid fire.
Stick around. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here alongside Steve Geller and 992 RIS just in response to that says, no, a true rebuild is getting rid of players that haven't panned out and those that are hard choices. Does this team still have Isaiah Foskey on it, or did I miss that? I mean,
Peyton Turner gone.
I feel like cutting a second-round pick in year 3 is a pretty good example of getting rid of players that haven't panned out. Peyton Turner, he's gone. He was a first-round pick. You didn't try to keep him around. So, again, I do think that this team has made some decisions to be like, okay, these draft picks aren't working. Let's reassess our process. Last year, they kept their draft picks. They didn't trade up. Now, Mickey Loomis still has not traded back. It would be nice to see him trade back and collect assets. But, again, I do think that you have to see how the trade deadline pans out, because I think people will be talking about a lot differently about the 4th rounder they sent out if you bring back multiple picks and suddenly you're sitting there with 8-9 draft picks on draft night. That comp pick for Paulson Adebo still on the table. The Saints did bring in Ike Adam. Whether they wanted to say it out loud or not, I think it's pretty clear that they're very well aware of, okay, we want him on special teams. We're not playing him on defense. So
that's Quincy's job now.
Huh?
That's Quincy's job now.
Yeah, and I think if Quincy got hurt and you had to play a cornerback, I think you'd play Rajon Wright.
Interesting. Okay.
And keep in mind, like, the special team snaps are not a factor here. He can play every special team snap the rest of the way. It's defensive snaps. So, like, and if he's a quality special teams player, it doesn't harm you to have him on the roster. Which that's, that Kellen kind of tried to massage it by not kind of giving it away, but I think he's not playing anymore. Because again, that's a 4th round pick, right? And if you get that 4th round comp pick, suddenly you're sitting there with 6 picks before you even consider what you might add at the deadline. And I think Shaheed is the guy who gets moved. And the real question is whether a team's going to be willing to give up a 3rd rounder, because that's what I want. I want a 3rd rounder. Teams are going to want to keep it at a 4th rounder. And so what you hope for Shaheed is that there's a bidding war. And the Steelers want him real bad. And they just have to do it. Or the Patriots want him real bad. One of these teams that doesn't really have an elite field stretcher. And they're willing, hey, okay, we'll do it. 3rd rounder, we think it's going to be late. And suddenly you have to, and one of the reasons you're willing to make that trade is because you have Vele there. Because think of it this way, like, we talked about this in the preseason. Like, why does it feel like the Saints need to make a move at wide receiver? Because they have this, like, small, speedy receiver room.
Right.
And the trio of Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Brandon Cooks never really made sense. I think you brought in Brandon Cooks because you wanted him to play with Derek Carr. And because when you signed Brandon Cooks, Derek Carr was still the guy. Now, you take either Rashid Shaheed or Brandon Cooks out of that equation, and you say your top 3 wide receivers are Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Devon Vele, or Chris Olave, Devon Vele, Brandon Cooks, which I think is the ideal scenario because you get a better asset back for Rashid Shaheed. That group makes way more sense. And you're basically at a wash from a pick perspective, and you have a guy that like I get it. You want to see Vele play more. I think he's been a solid player. And remember, the snap count includes the plays that he's on there on the field as a blocker. And you're talking about a 6'4", 6'5" guy who's a much more effective blocker than, Chris Olave or Brandon Cooks. Like, so he gives you a piece that you just didn't have. So, like, I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about that. And
are you on the feeling that the team thinks they're not going to be able to re-sign Shaheed, so might as well deal him?
I just don't think it's worth it. I think Shaheed's going to want to test the market, and the market for wide receivers is ridiculous.
Yeah, bonanza, right.
And even if you didn't get a trade for Shaheed, if you couldn't get someone to bump it up, and like, he's probably going to go sign a contract that gets you a comp pick as long as you don't offset it. Now, if you don't want to have to worry about offsetting it and you want to be able to go into free agency kind of open to what you need to be able to do and not have to wait, then sure, take that pick and say, we're just going to lock in that 4th rounder now. But you don't have to. And I think you can play hardball and say, we'll just keep him and then force someone else's hand, because worst case scenario, you don't re-sign him and he goes somewhere else for $20 million a year or whatever it is. Like, maybe that's a little high. Maybe it ends up being $14 million a year. It's going to be somewhere in that mid-range. you're going to get a comp pick back, and it's just going to be a factor. So I think Shaheed is the guy that you're shopping, at least on the offense. Okay. Charles Andrews says, this is not enjoyable football. We are seeing every Sunday. These players are paid well. And for what? Yeah, that's fair.
We feel you, Charles.
Says the fumbles are more concerning than anything else. Correct. Yeah, I mean, the fumbles are tough. Jerry G says, Jadrop Johnson. I also saw Jawan Dropson, which I think works better. Sorry, Jerry. I got to give the credit to Dropson. Which would you prefer, Steve?
Yeah, it flows better with Dropson too. I would agree. Sorry, Jerry.
Juwan Dropson. Plus, you don't know who you're talking about. Johnson's such a common name that you could be talking about anybody, really. Let's see. Robin Sagari says, Shuck's pocket awareness is not it. I don't think that was the issue in the game. Keep in mind, like, he threw the ball 30 times. And I do have questions about how Kellen is structuring this offense, because he made it way too easy for Todd Bowles to just find a free rusher. Like, all he had to do was show pressure one side, drop out, the line shifts to that side, and then you just got a free edge coming. And it's like, that happened like 4 or 5 times. And I don't know. Like, I asked Kellen after the game, was Shuck operating the full offense, or was he a little limited? And he said no. He said there was a full offense. I don't buy that. I don't think you can be running the full offense having not had a single practice rep all season. But hopefully it improves.
I'm still waiting for the whole offense to show up.
Yeah. Robin said, I liked what I saw from Valet. I liked his involvement. You know, I didn't see, he had the one nice catch to start the game, the first down conversion. And that's where he's going to be the most useful is third down, red zone, even if he's more involved. But again, like, even if he's on the field as a blocker, like, that's an asset that you just didn't have before. So I also thought, like, that usage for him makes more sense to me. You can't have him getting 12 snaps, 18 snaps a game. Leo Addy Chase says, I'm as big a Loomis hater as the next guy, but going into the season with Kyle Hergel as your backup left tackle was crazy to even consider. Yeah, like the awesome Richards trade had to happen. And that's why, like, I'm not as hard on these trades, in large part because Devon Godshaw was a player you needed. Like, you changed defenses, you needed a nose tackle that you could at least rely on. And whether you think he's a good player or not, like, that's what Brandon Staley needed to install his offense, was a guy who understood how a nose tackle is supposed to play. He's also under contract for next year, so it's not just a one-year thing. And if you do want to move on from him, you can, because it's the final year of that contract and not a ton of it's guaranteed. So a 7th-round pick for a veteran who fills an important need, worth it. Awesome Richards. Landon Young got hurt. You desperately needed someone who could fill in at tackle, and he's played. He's also a guy who's in his rookie deal. He's going to be here next year. So 2028, 6th for a 7th. I can't complain about that. Did Jalen Polk, you gave up nothing and got a guy who could be something? Okay, fine. That's a gamble. I don't mind. And then Devon Bailey's the other one. So, like, again, they're guys who filled important needs and or are guys for the future. So I agree with that. He also says, I'd rather see Rajon Wright before Yadam plays another snap. I agree, but I don't think they're very thrilled with how Rajon Wright's been playing on special teams, because, you know, they brought in Michael Davis. Michael Davis is the guy that, you know, like, if they were going to play Yadam, they wouldn't have brought in Michael Davis. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to trade Yadam, to be completely honest, but I don't know what you're going to get for him.
Yeah, like you said, they're definitely aware of the compensatory pick with him.
Yeah, and they pretended they weren't. 100%.
Right, come on.
And when Mickey talked to Mike Haas, Haas asked him, like, do you want more picks? And he was like, yeah, of course. And he was like, but we don't know exactly how many picks we're going to have yet. And that's him saying, like, we could get a comp pick.
Right.
And if he knows he knows there's a comp pick on the table, he knows exactly what it's going to take for him to get it. And I do think there's kind of a balance of, you can't tell the coach to be like, you can't play that guy. But you do make it clear to him, like, can we do anything else? How much do you really like Ike? Anyway. Any questions you want to talk about, Steve?
I'm looking around here.
Leo Addy Chase says, I'd rather keep Shaheed and replace Olave in the draft. I disagree with that. I really like Shaheed. If you had, I just think it's a lot harder to find an elite possession receiver, an elite like get open guy, than it is. Like, I think you replace your wide receiver 1 in the draft, but I think I'd rather pair Olave with kind of an elite possession receiver than try to get more out of Shaheed than I am. Plus, like Shaheed's put too many balls in the fumbles yesterday were just, God, you can't do that.
Yeah, for me, I'm pretty much open for business. I'll trade anybody.
Yeah, and here's the thing: if someone came in with a massive offer for Olave, I'd definitely consider it.
Right.
But keep in mind, you would have to pay Shaheed to keep him around, and you don't know if you're going to be able to do that. Like, you at least have the luxury of being able to go into this offseason knowing Chris Olave is on your roster next year and figure something out. And based on how he's played this year, I don't know how you could, I think you'd have some grounds to be like, let's keep this deal shorter and for less average annual money. And hey, maybe in 2 years when we get back to this point and you want to ask for a $30 million contract, we can do that, but we'll see. Either way, I just think Olave just has so much more to his game. And as frustrating as he can be at times, I just think he makes a lot more sense to build around. But I could be wrong. Olave's also younger, by the way. Like, I think one of the things that people don't talk about with Shaheed, and this is true of a lot of players, and this is why the age thing kind of annoys me in the sense that, okay, players are just coming out of college older than they used to, right? Chris Olave is 25. Rashid Shaheed's 27. So we want to talk about age. We talk about the issue with Devon Vele being that he's 27 years old. Rashid's 27. So now
I just have no desire to give Olave top tier money.
I understand that. And the head injury history is obviously a factor. I do think he's playing a little differently this year because of that. And Leo agrees with you, says, I just don't want to pay Olave, man. But again, like, how much do you want to pay 27-year-old Rashid Shaheed?
Right.
And again, I really like Rashid, but if I have to pick one of them, I'm picking Olave, personally.
If I had to pick one, I'll go Shaheed.
Fair enough. Reef says, Cam Jordan needs to be a coach or retire. We need cheap contracts. We need to get younger. See, here's the other thing. So cheap contracts, what are we talking about? Well, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Taysom Hill all took pay cuts. Like, so they made their contracts cheaper in order to stay around. And also, like, you can push off that cap hit for a year, which allowed you to build your roster a little more organically this year because of that. If they wouldn't have taken a pay cut, I think you would have tried to bite the bullet on that, but it would have made operating this year very difficult. So, like, I don't have an issue with that.
Did you see the Bucs GM trolling Cam Jordan?
I did. And that's one of the issues when you're going to say stuff like that, Cam. Like, it's going to get brought up against you. We'll see. You know, there's a lot being said here. I disagree. Tanya Arrington says they're going to waste your money on Olave. I think Olave is a really good player. This season has been weird. In a lot of ways. I think he was trying to figure out how to play early in the season, in that he's trying to operate differently. He's trying to make sure when he gets over the middle of the field, he gets down and doesn't take those hits. The hands have been frustrating.
I don't want my wide receiver thinking about that. I mean, I get it, but it just seems to be in the back of the mind too much.
Yeah, and I think there's a balance. He hasn't. I mean, he plays through a lot. Like, that's the thing people forget about Chris is, like, you know, it's not like, yeah, the head injuries are tough, but, like, he's playing through injuries constantly. Like, he's not a guy that is gonna be, you know, oh, well, I'm banged up, so I'm gonna sit down and we'll see. But, like, Shaheed is gonna cost less, I guess, but he's not a one either.
No.
So you go into the draft, and I guess you could go take one of these top wide receivers in the draft. But there's going to be a bidding war in the offseason. So how cheap is it really going to be? Now, if you can get a second round pick for Olave, okay, there's a different story. If all I can get is a third, I'm absolutely not trading Chris Olave. And maybe I'm higher than Chris than some other people, but I think that's the value. Like, I think he's the value player. And when I'm talking about my quarterback, I need a guy who can get open for my quarterback. And if he can also be a deep threat, fantastic. Because I haven't really seen Shaheed be the deep threat for this offense. I've seen Olave be the deep threat for this offense over the last month. They had that one catch against the Giants. That's it. And you can put that on the offense. But I don't need two of those guys. And I think Chris provides the deep passing opportunities and also underneath in a way that Rasheed doesn't necessarily offer it. I'd love to keep both of them. I wouldn't mind having Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, and Devon Vele be your core, and you move Brandon Cooks. I just don't know what the trademark is going to be for Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, I don't know how many folks are calling for Cooksy either.
We'll see. I mean, like, again, I think the tape Cooks has put out has been fine. It's just you're not throwing him the ball, and when you have thrown the ball, he's been effective. You know, for a team like if Brandon Cooks was on the Bills, I think he would be eaten. You know, if like a Khalil Shakir got hurt and you just needed a guy like Cooks to bring in and be that kind of middle of the field guy, I think he could deliver. It's just, why would you, you know, if you were in the offseason and, you know, you knew Derek Carr wasn't going to be there, you probably wouldn't have signed Cooks. I think you signed Cooks because you wanted to pair one veteran receiver with the quarterback. And now you're just like, well, that didn't work.
Maybe like a Seattle or something will come a calling.
Yeah.
I just said that because I know he's from around those parts.
Yeah, Oregon, right?
Right.
Actually, I think he's from California. I think he's actually from the same part of the country as Keith Williams. I think they're both from that kind of Fresno area.
Yeah.
Because Keith tried to recruit Brandon to Fresno State.
You're right.
Brandon just was like, sorry, Keith, love you, but absolutely not. Leo, a lot of good comments from Leo, which glad to see you in here. Appreciate it. I think we've got two number 2 wide receivers and no big AJ Brown, DK Metcalf body starting caliber player. Yeah, sure. But, you know, those guys are tough to find. You know, I would love AJ Brown. If I can find a way to pry AJ Brown away from the Eagles, I'm doing it. He's a little older, though. That's the problem.
He's older, and I don't know if you want to bring in that kind of drama because we know that he might be on the sideline reading books while the team's on the field.
What's wrong with reading books? Actually, AJ Brown's not that. I thought AJ Brown was older. He's actually only 28. DK Metcalf, I think, might be the older one. No, he's only 27. They just look old. These are just old-looking guys. DK Metcalf is the same age as Rashid Shaheed. Think about that. But obviously a lot different in terms of the investment. And both of those guys have been well onto their second contracts. Or actually, I guess DK, how many contracts has he had? I know he just got paid by the Steelers.
Right.
I can't remember if that was his second contract or his third contract. Because these guys have been in the league forever.
Yeah, we need more of the JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba kind of type.
It's his third contract. And he got paid 4 years, $132 million, which is kind of crazy to think. Like, Rashid Shaheed is just coming off his rookie deal, and DK Metcalf, who's the same age as him, is on his third NFL contract.
Yeah.
But like, that's the thing. Like, what does the transfer portal do to college football? Well, in Rashid's case, it's kind of weird because he stayed at Weber State, but like, you have players coming out older, right? And no one complained about it when it was Michael Thomas, who is older than Brandon Cooks. Yet was drafted like 4 years later, but yeah. Tanya Arrington says, love you guys. This is going to be some hard days ahead. Until we get a true QB team to the beast at wide receiver, we're doomed. Yeah, and I think that's the second half of this season. Do you have a quarterback? Do you have to go get a quarterback? And the nice thing is, and we talked about this in the full episode, if you end up in a position where you get the 8th pick in the draft, that means that Tyler Shough played well. And assuming Tyler Shough is your quarterback, which I have to assume he is, that means that Tyler played well enough over the second half of the season to win you a handful of games. And that probably means that you feel pretty good about what he did. If you get the number 1 overall pick, it probably means he didn't play that well. and you're in position to take with Mendoza. Would Mendoza be the top guy right now?
That seems to be the buzz with everyone at the moment.
I know
Man,
everyone
the
likes
QB class went down the tubes this year.
NFL mock draft. Let's see. Who's the top mock draft?
Nobody's calling for Arch anymore?
Yeah. Doesn't seem that way.
I do agree
Fernando
with
Mendoza.
This
mock draft. This mock draft from our buddy Justin Mello that he put out yesterday.
Okay.
Has the Saints drafting number 1 overall and taking Fernando Mendoza.
There you go. Mello knows, man. I trust him.
I do. I like Justin Mello. He's really sharp. All right. I think that's it. Leo says Mendoza would be the top guy for sure. A lot of people are saying he's the next Burrow.
Oh,
I don't know how much I believe that, but
just because of the injuries, I hope not.
Just because of the injuries. Yeah, I think that's. I think they just mean
the talent. I got you.
Yeah, the talent. Bordelais says somebody needed a paintball captain. Man, come on. What are you doing that to me?
We did pretty good here. We're about to get into Kellen Moore press conference, so we did a pretty good pregame up to this.
Yes. And I think that's where I'm going to knock it off. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out. Thanks, everyone, for sitting through my rant about the rebuild and whether it's happening or not. I had to get that off my chest. I was thinking about that all morning. I was like, why is this annoying me so much? Mainly because I'm watching it. Mainly because I'm watching a team lose all these games in the process of playing all these young players and then getting told they're not younger. And like, what am I watching? Why? What is the excuse for this then? Anyway, that's it. But all right, who dat? Go Saints. We did it. We made it.
Help.
Send help. All right, guys. Until the next time, peace out.
Who dat?